seen one too many movies.
Nah, Sid, don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
I'm Larissa. You don't know me, or maybe you do. Hi, Mom. I live in the pretentious hellscape known as Toronto. Life is miserable, but I love art and advocating for it. I like to analyze scripts and films for fun. That's fun to me. Sometimes I take notes at the movie theater. Not on my phone, obviously. That would be distracting. Yeah, used to run a workshop every month, but people kept sending me their shitty scripts to read after, and I didn't want to read them anymore. So don't at me, don't DM me your shitty scripts just because I like scripts, films, and I'm trying to be supportive of artists. How dare you think that I would want to support you too? I don't. I'm not actually joking. I also love to rage against the machine, whatever that means. I like to rant. I like to rant and rave. I like to scream. I like to pound my fucking chest. I like to drop my pussy on the floor. I like to rub my fucking sweat on strangers. I like to kick babies. I want to complain about the small nuisances in my life. And I don't know, scream into the void. And maybe people will listen and maybe they'll like it. Maybe they won't like it. If you're sitting there jerking off to this right now, I guess I don't care. Just want those sweet hits, those likes. Give me your likes. Anyways, it's Thursday afternoon. I'm sitting in my towel, drinking iced coffee. I've already started nipping into the rosé. I figured since we've hit peak podcast, according to the New York Times, that now is the perfect time to start a podcast, obviously, because failure is imminent. It's kind of freeing. For my maiden voyage of Maybe It's Me, which is titled Maybe It's Me, to absolve myself of having to be accurate with anything that I post. It's just my opinion. Maybe it's my opinion, and therefore it might not be accurate. Don't come at me later if I'm wrong. I have a perfectionist streak, but there's a thing called analysis paralysis, I'm trying to push through that right now. This is a big step for me. So I'm throwing myself on the hill of the hunt. Throwing myself on the hill? Throwing myself on a spear? I'm dying on a hill? Whatever. For the movie The Hunt, which was set for release in like a month, but the film got derailed by Trump when he said, let me read this, liberal Hollywood is racist at the highest level, and with great anger and hate, they like to call themselves elite, but they are not. The movie's going to cause chaos. They create violence and then try to blame others. Hollywood's racist. Very bad for our country. And then the Orange Fuhrer wiped the waterfall of sweat from his drooping bologna slab of a head. Ugh, I don't know. I wish I didn't even have to talk about him, to be honest. I hate him. I hate people talking about him. I don't want to fucking hear about him anymore. I just had to set the context for this film, which got pulled from theaters because of him. Not just because of him, because of also like people frothing at the mouth on Twitter saying it's like a pro-Trumpy, pro-conservative film, which it's not. So I read the script of this maligned film. So I'm going to talk about the script and the trailer because that's all I have to go on. There's probably shit in here that you'll consider spoilers, depending on what you consider to be a spoiler. I talk more generally about character arc, theme, and something which I guess is a reveal, but you can infer a lot of this stuff from the trailer anyway, so I'm not doing it to be malicious, the film or the creators. I'm absolutely in support of The Hunt, and anything spoilery is to prove a point in support of The Hunt. So just know that going forth. There are reports online that are saying that The Hunt won't actually even be released and that Universal's distancing itself from the film. I don't know if that's true or not. That seems so ridiculous, but you never know. The Hunt was basically just The Purge, but with a female protagonist who'd picked up a copy of 12 Rules for Life. I know that probably just made you think it's conservative now, but it's not. I'd actually argue that The Hunt, at its core, is this empowering lady boss from the swamps film about how when a woman becomes utterly self-sufficient, leads with integrity, uses logic to navigate the world versus knee-jerk impulse, she can and she shall triumph. Sure, she might have to kill a couple people, but you know what? It creates character. It builds character. You know, she's not just... I guess you don't even know who I'm talking about. Okay. So who is this aspirational female figure? Why, it's the world-weary, salt-of-the-earth Crystal, played by Betty Gilpin, sporting a fresh Duck Dynasty meets Orange is the New Black survivalist meth head, but make it fashion look. Yes, Betty is rocking that Crystal fresh persona like no one's business. She's got this whole, like, I don't shower to smell good for the patriarchy thing going. And she's also got a great name. When has Crystal not been an amazing name choice in a movie? I don't know. Gina Gershon's finest role was forged in Crystal. Versace. She's got a gun, and she knows how to use it. Don't underestimate a woman just because she's a fucking hillbilly. Moral of the story. The Hunt also stars my favorite, Glenn Howerton, made famous for his inspirational dentist system. I actually think The Hunt was pulled because Trump didn't want to inspire low-income women to take charge of their lives and kick them out of office, and then throw free birth control around like confetti in celebration. And I gotta say, how utterly Gemini of him. And I'm sorry, not sorry if you're a Gemini and you didn't like that, but you're a Gemini, so I don't really care what you think. It's also ironic that he got the film pulled because that's what the film was about. I mean, aside from the lady boss storyline, it's about rich people not liking voices of dissent of the poor and disenfranchised, people that they think they own, and doing their best to silence those voices with, I guess, guns. Allegedly, The Hunt may have been originally titled Red State versus Blue State. That wasn't on the script page, so I don't know if that's just fake news. Yeah, there's some language that indicates political leanings, but there's nothing explicitly stating I'm a Trump supporter or I am a liberal. The rich call the rednecks deplorables, and then the hunted call them globalist cucks. But that doesn't mean Trump supporter per se. There are plenty of wealthy Trump supporters and plenty of rednecks who didn't vote for him. And there's also, plenty of like liberals who aren't rich, clearly. So, I mean, and I do think that it's kind of slyly demonstrates neoliberal hypocrisy. I mean, maybe it's not that sly, but I think the fact that people went apeshit when they watched the movie in the test audience, that kind of tells you that they must have done it in a way that people did not like. And I think that that's because they did it slyly. They held the mirror up and people didn't like what they saw. People pretend they're altruistic. Like these rich people are people pretending to be altruistic, donating to this and that, but they're actually down to fucking kill someone who has opposing ideology or hurt their career or whatever. I don't think that makes the hunted the heroes just by virtue of the hunters being, bigger assholes. I think it's calling bullshit on current culture, showing the idiocy, hypocrisy, and futility of both sides. It was directed at the online faction that tears each other's throats out. So, I don't know. Do you do that? I guess if you do that, maybe this movie will offend you. But if you aren't a fucking asshole on the internet, I don't see why this movie would offend you. It's not glamorizing conservatism or picking a side. There's a scene near the end of the film that basically predicts the reaction of the public to this film, which is hilarious. Having said that, even if it was that film, shut the fuck up. people are allowed to make films about whatever the hell they want. And if they want to make a film about liberals versus conservatives and the conservatives are the heroes, then they should be allowed to make that movie. Just because it's not your political leaning. It's not my political leaning either, but people can still make a movie about it. People always say not to write down to your audience, to assume that they're intelligent, and I really used to believe that that was a good tactic. But after seeing the reaction to The Hunt and other movies over the past few years, I'm inclined to believe that people have actually become more moronic. If you've willfully given yourself a lobotomy with Twitter and Facebook, that's your problem. Don't make it the rest of the movie watching world's problem because you're unable to have a mirror held up to you without having a complete fucking meltdown. If your belief system is so perfect, then having it turned into a movie and poked fun of shouldn't ruin your life. If being shown your own flaws is a terrifying thing that induces death threats and outrage on the internet, then that's your fucking problem. That's not a filmmaker's problem, that's yours. If you have to threaten a filmmaker for holding the mirror up, you got bigger problems than the movies. You gotta see a therapist. You gotta do some self-reflection, some deep diving, you know? I don't know, maybe God can help you. You know what, though? At the end of the day, this is why I started the podcast, because I have got to speak out in support of these millionaire filmmakers who just keep getting shit on. So if you want to say, well, okay, Larissa, but they still seem like Trump supporters, and, you know, if she ends up being, you know, the final girl or one of the final girls, she still, over the course of the script, while she presents like as this, she doesn't want to talk. She doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to know why they're being hunted. She doesn't fucking care. She just wants to fucking get out. And I love that. I love that this was the drive of the script because, oh my God, so many scripts are just so exposition heavy, just so overwrought, trying to like pull emotion from you. And it's just so ineffective and draining to read and watch. And the sparseness of her character actually created a very vivid character because she just moves through this landscape like a fucking shark. And I would say that Crystal has a more centrist leaning ideology. She doesn't present any ideology at all, in fact. I would base that solely on the fact that she's competent, level-headed. She has utter lack of hysteria, outrage, or verbosity. She's someone caught in the crossfires. She keeps a clear head throughout the chaos of the assholes and the idiots around her. She reveals character in the script that kind of presents both sides without any preference or deeper meaning. She's capable of compassion but serves herself ultimately in a survival of the fittest fashion. She's not motivated by revenge, fear, lack, boredom, whatever. And I love this. I think it's such a strong character. I think The Hunt is a bold movie, and I really hope that I actually get to see it. And I think if there's a thematic statement that I take away from the script, it's that the person who manages to keep their cool and their sanity is the one that wins. And I think that that's a pretty positive message, don't you? And I really loved Crystal's arc. That was my favorite part of the entire script. Was she kind of doesn't arc, the audience kind of arcs instead of her, where we come to realize what kind of person she really is and we respect her for it. So I thought that was pretty interesting because that's an unusual, it wasn't breaking any rules per se, but it was a fresh presentation, I think. And I took a lot away from that as a writer. Nightcrawler is one of my favorite movies, and one of my favorite character arcs because it's one that we so rarely see. I guess it was kind of a similar to like a Taxi Driver kind of character arc, but Lou Bloom, how he just fucking leans in. Like, he just keeps going and going and changing and adapting and improving until he gets to his end goal. And I love that he doesn't change, he just improves, and then the world just sort of allows it. And I feel like this movie is about a woman who is just relentless in her survival instinct. And I think ultimately Crystal's kind of the only one in the film that comes out with her hands clean, even though they're covered in a little bit of blood, because she stayed true to herself. Like, she wasn't really, like, her most selfish impulse was just survival. There's a scene where a guy is talking about how, oh, like, when we survive this, like, we're gonna get to, like, go on all these talk shows and talk about how we were, like, traded by these people. And I do feel like that's commenting on victim culture, where it is like, oh, wow, I'm a victim. Now I can make some fucking money. Now I can get famous on the internet. And spinning your victim narrative into personal gain, I think, is also, like, also a bit of a theme, in the sense that it connects to what you're capable of getting now as a victim or just a person who exists now, like, where you don't have to have power to achieve powerful things. And the flip side of that is that you don't have to have power now to be able to completely ruin another person's life. And in the case of this film, if they get out alive, of course they have every right to ruin the people's lives that did this to them, because they tried to kill them. And this is a spoiler. I did warn you, though. But the whole thing comes about because of these interactions online, where it's like a poor person, or, like a nobody, I guess, being able to ruin a somebody's life with accusations on the internet that are false. You can just be a person on the internet, bored, dissatisfied, unemployed. Maybe you have a bone to pick for whatever reason, and you just go through someone famous or successful's timeline on Twitter, and you destroy their career with an out-of-context, poorly aged joke. I mean, this is like a conversation that's kind of been done to death, but it is a terrifying thought. And I think that if you do that to another person and it's not warranted, and even if it is, don't be surprised if they seek revenge on you. Like, I don't know why people think that you're not as anonymous as you fucking think you are. If you take down a rich person, you best believe that they have the means to find out who the fuck you are, and if they're vindictive, they're going to come for you. I think people don't realize this when they do all this shit, and it blows my mind. It blows my fucking mind. You might also notice that the key roles in the film went to predominantly white cast. Of course you noticed that. But did it pass the Bechdel test, is maybe what you're asking. Yes, it did. It did pass the Bechamel, Hollandaise, Florentine. I don't fucking know. Who cares? I fucking can't even stand the Bechdel test. So what? So what if women want to talk about their boyfriends in a movie? So what? I know plenty of chicks who are all about the dick, and that's it. They just love dick, getting a boyfriend, having a baby. That's all they talk about. Those are real people too, And I think it's actually debasing to say that their stories are misogynistic and don't deserve to be heard. Fuck you, Bechdel test. So the movie is predominantly white, aside from the refugee roles, who were, I think, mostly Middle Eastern. I would say that the reason it's mostly white, I mean, I can only speculate, but I think it was definitely intentional. Normally, I really do not like to engage in these conversations, because I think people should just be able to cast whoever the fuck they want in their movies without it being political or fitting someone else's social agenda. I would say that maybe it's commenting on white America, how white America is eating itself. The people who are supposedly the Trump supporter, what are they called? reprehensibles or whatever, they were actually like online conspiracy nuts. Definitely a white person thing. And I'm sorry if that offends any like non-white conspiracy theorists out there, but I also feel like it's not really like a badge of honor to be one. So also because a lot of the rich people who squawk the loudest and the rich people of power who are getting taken down are primarily white. So it could just be that. It could be that it's trying to represent the faction of America that is being the squawkiest. The people who are not white in the film are all the refugees. In the script, there's this whole section where Crystal sort of like is lumped in with these refugees. And then there's this part where she's like, I'm American. And then that kind of gives her this free pass. So, and I think that what that shows is that no matter how bad the problems get in America, they are never nearly as bad as what's happening in other places on the planet. And I think that the contrast was intentional. And if you want to stick with this narrative that they are Trump supporters, then there's irony to them being with refugees, you know, since Trump supporters are pro-wall, etc. But the script moves at such a great, fast pace that, and it doesn't cling to any comments. So you're not really like lingering on ideology while you're watching it. It's a very straight arrow of a film. I don't know. I feel like if you watch like Assassination Nation, it was no more political than that movie. And that movie was sort of addressing, I think, what people think of as liberal and conservative. And Bodied also, where it's like social justice warriors versus artists. Bodied is like one of my favorite movies of the last few years. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely fucking watch it. And I think it's like the perfect movie, actually. If you're listening to this podcast and you've got this far and you're an artist or a filmmaker or whatever, and you feel scared to share your work, I don't know, watch Bodied and see how you feel. I feel energized when I watch that movie. Energized. Anyways, back to The Hunt, I guess. I don't know. Do I have anything else to say about it? I guess the question is, should you pay to see The Hunt when it comes out on demand or stream, whatever? Support it or don't. I don't give a shit if this movie makes money. In fact, I despise the idea of someone going to a film for political or ideological reasons. Like even as an act of defiance, I think it diminishes the film or it gives too much credit to the film. I mean, although, you know what, although I'm also interested in how, I'm kind of interested in the reactions of how society behaves towards art as society changes. So, you know what, I don't know how I feel about it actually now that I'm really saying it out loud. But, you know, and I also like worry that, you know, something like The Hunt, okay, it gets pulled, Trump hates it, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes on to make like $100 million in on-demand sales, that it will spur like these kind of like marketing ploys to get attention for other films. I definitely don't think filmmakers are above that shit, pretending they're victims or pretending they're being censored when they're not. So just to get, I don't know, interest in their shit. Although, I'm not a capitalist, but a little bit of the capitalist in me kind of like, you know, game, recognize game. I have no game. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. I think I should just end this. So, yeah, go see The Hunt or don't. I don't care. I think that the script was actually pretty good, and I think it'd probably be a pretty good movie. And I think if there's anything that I'm going to take away from reading the script, it's that an empowered woman is the most dangerous game of all.